we're going to talk about some of the features and characteristics of Noah's Ark. Here we will see and take an example in this drawing and illustrate the right end of possibly Noah's Ark as we see here. Now we talk about the window. Approximately right there we see the possible one of the upper windows of the right end of possibly Noah's Ark, and this is what it would have looked like when it was intact, where the yellow pointer points to. Next we talk about and ask, well, how did Noah's Ark get air? Well, here is a cutaway, and Noah's Ark may have had a tunnel like on each side of the ark. And as the wind blew during the flood, when it was on top of the floodwaters from one end to the other, it had vent holes in it like this. And it was far enough away from the end where water and would not blow into these vent holes. This is just a simulation. Now, where we continue to explain this and show the outline right there in red is where the tunnel may have been and how it may have been shaped right there. Alright, and then we show a first red arrow right there that shows that's where the air came in. And then the second red arrow that we will show after that first one blinking off and on shows how the air went in, and we had a tunnel like this on each side. It would blow the fresh air on one side and let the bad air out on the other, such as methane gas, and also from carbon dioxide that people and animals would breathe out. And as the air would come down, it would then go down this tunnel as the second red arrow shows, and then as the other arrows show, it would go into these air vents like this and come in, for example, like on the left side, completely coming into the ark and providing some light as well, and also blowing out the other side and vice versa. And that's basically how that worked in the ark. We also know that the last reference in Scripture in the Bible is Genesis 8:13 as to what happened to the ark. A lot of people think it's an intact box-to-barge like shape. However, we have to take scriptural authority first. In the Bible, it shows that in Genesis 8:13 that Noah took off the covering or roof and or some translations upper animal stalls as well. And this is exactly what we see was likely the situation inside what's left of the ark today. However, besides that, there is also archaeological evidence. For example, in the fragments of Berosus that was written sometimes by Berosus the Chaldean, sometimes between 285 and 280 BCE, he says Noah removed the upper covering or animal stalls from off the ark. Now, is this the only peer-reviewed material? No, it is not. There are other peer-reviewed books from 1661 to 1919 CE that are peer-reviewed papers and books, and also some that are not. And we're going to take a look at those now. For example, starting on the left, we see Corey's Ancient Fragments of the Phoenicians. And that was made sometimes between 1802 and 1842. Then the next one we see here would be entitled Volume 6, Ancient History of the Egyptians, and that was produced sometimes between 1781 and 1661. Then we have Volume 6, Ancient History of the Egyptians as well, produced in 1741 as a peer-reviewed paper. And then we also have Egypt and Western Asia in the light of recent events. And that was translated and is a peer-reviewed paper about also these other things as aforementioned between 1900 and 1919. However, there's other sources as well, taken from these URLs, from about Babylonia and Assyria and Berosus 280 BC and his other peer-reviewed paper on the right as well. And then from these books, and also peer-reviewed papers, as seen on the far right and on the far left, in like manner. Other sources include these books and papers in like manner again, as we can see here. And this also doesn't take into account people like Josephus, who also wrote, and Nicholas of Damascus, who wrote what Berosus had written as well. Next, we illustrate how the ark may have lost its roof over time. As we previously mentioned as well, that the Bible in Genesis 8:13 says that Noah removed the covering off the ark. And it's also backed up by archaeological evidence and other peer-reviewed papers that have explained it in one way to one point or another in details, etc. So let's say that this is where Noah started taking off the roof around 2350 BCE according to Bible chronology. Eventually, people would take talismans or take pieces of wood off the ark as well, and they would make good luck charms off of it. And this was also demonstrated. Then we also see that over time, the centuries, more and more people would do this and take either relics off of it or make souvenirs, and also for religious purposes. And in some cases, there was even a Tsarina from Russia from 1731 who requested a piece of the wood from the ark in like manner as well. Now, here, as the centuries passed and people took more and more off the ark, then we can see here, this is how the animal stalls appeared in the background and in the right end, and the shape that it was left in. And eventually, the way that it appeared and appears today is almost like this. However, the way when we look at it is like this, as we see here, as to what the right end of the possible remains of Noah's Ark looks like today. However, when we continue to examine this in reality, here's a photo of possibly the remains of the ark right there. It's about 525 feet long from that end down there, which is the right end, which we looked at in the illustration, all the way back up here to the left end, which is about right there at that point, is 525 feet long. And on the sides is possibly all kinds of animal carving representations of the animals, showing that they came out of the ark according to picture writing or pictorial symbols. And when we take a look finally at the ark today and give it a before and after comparison, before it looked like this on the left between 2400 and 2350 BCE, and what it looks like today, in which we have just seen and showed, is the example sitting on a cliff shelf on the northeast side of Greater Mount Ararat, and we see as the ark's remains.